Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to Generalization Gamers. It's Skull here, and today I am going to be playing Moonlight Walks. It is a free downloadable PC game, Flash game. I believe it is a dating sims game. This is the first time we've tried this one. The .com said it was by shoujo.com, so by shoujo is usually a dating sims game. Type of genre or whatever. I don't really know. So we're gonna have some fun with this one. So let's start it and test it out. It was a summer before I started college, and I spent the past 2 years studying, taking tests, and applying for admission. Sounds like me. Now, for the first time in a while, I had a little downtime, so I decided to take the opportunity to explore America. I am in America. But since I was broke, my plans were quickly scaled down to spending the summer at my aunt and uncle's house on a small island known as North Sand Island. Oh, that sucks, and so does the name. North Sand Island was a barrier island in the Atlantic Ocean. It was remote enough that there wasn't even a bridge to it, just a ferry that ran a few times a day. Being such a small island, there wasn't all that too much to do, but the solitude was nice, and I found ways to pass the time. Ooh, I wonder. One thing I did was to take pictures with my digital camera. On the night of a full moon, I decided that I wanted to capture the moonrise. Ooh, that's so cool. I gotta try that sometime, watch the moonrise. So I went out to the beach just before the moon came up. I set up my camera on my tripod, locked in the appropriate shutter speed, and f-stop. Every few seconds as the moon rose, I would use the remote that came with my camera to snap another frame showing the moon as reflection in the water. It only took a few minutes for the moon to rise over the horizon, but I kept it for a little while longer. Finally, it was done. I started packing up my camera and my tripod to get ready to head back to my aunt and uncle's house. Holy sh! There was a girl. That's the first time I saw her in the distance. I could see someone else walking along the beach. I could tell it was probably a girl or a woman from the long white dress she wore. Oh, I wonder. But it was from that distance that it was hard to tell anything else about her. I decided to stay a bit to see who it was. In all the times I've gotten out stargazing, I've never met anyone that was just walking down the beach in the middle of the night. Yeah, you were walking down the middle of the beach yourself. At that late hour, most people were either at home or in town with other people. You hardly ever saw people by themselves. Well, you were by yourself. Explain that. The only time I've seen someone else on the beach at night would be when they were watching the stars or the satellites go by. By those people still standing up in this... Oh my god. I ran through a number of crazy scenarios in my head. Maybe she had some disease that meant she couldn't be out in the sun. Maybe she was looking for buried treasure. It only took me a few seconds to dismiss these. What was the chance of them actually happening? I waited for a while as she slowly made her way down the beach. I didn't think much such a slow walk could be for exercise, but I had no idea what else she'd be doing there. Finally, she was close enough that I could get a good look at her using the telephoto lens of my camera. She was the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. She was around my age, a year or two younger or older than most, and perfect shape. Her skin was flawless, a bit pale, and her hair was very light, almost as white as a long dress she was wearing. Typical anime. Together, the combination of pale skin, light hair, and the white dress made her seem to glow in the moonlight. She was a far ways off, and I was pretty sure that she hadn't seen me, and I knew what it was I wanted to do. Okay, I wanted to take a picture, or I needed to talk to her. I wanted to take a picture. I thought it would be a failure as a photographer if I let such a beautiful sight go without capturing it, so I decided to take my camera to take her picture. I didn't let her know I was there. It's best to take a picture of unaware people because then they know you're taking their picture and tend to pose unnaturally. I set the camera to auto, framed her in the picture, and pressed the shutter release button. The camera beeped softly as it captured the picture. I repeated this a dozen times and find that it helps to take many pictures in hopes that one or two of them will come out perfect. When I was done taking the pictures, I lowered my camera and waved to her. After a few seconds, she finally noticed me and waved back, but she was still far away that if I had tried talking to her, my voice would have been lost over the crash of the waves. Glad I chose this choice. I put my camera back in the case, pulled up my tripod, and started heading back to my aunt and uncle's house. When I got back, I hooked my camera to the computer and started downloading the pictures I took last night. That was actually a pretty cool transition. I was surprised. The series of photographs of the new moon came out well, but they weren't really what I was interested in. I quickly skipped through them looking for the pictures of the girl. But then I finally got to the pictures of her. There was something strange about them. She wasn't there. I was almost certain I had framed the picture right, but I saw in them was the sandy beach behind where she was standing. There were a dozen pictures like this, each of them had the background of a shot I had framed, but the subject was nowhere to be seen. I must have spent an hour slowly cycling through the pictures and looking I took of the girl, hoping in vain that she would show up in the least of them. Was this going to be some horror in there? But she was never there. The combination of her mysterious beauty and the strangeness of those pictures imprinted her image on my mind. Even today, years later, I can close my eyes, think back, and see her as I saw through my lens that day. I went stargazing at the beach several times over the summer, hoping to be able to see her again, but I never did. Nothing to say. Did I choose the wrong ending? I chose the wrong ending! God freaking! Ah! Dang it! Alright. Fricked out. We gotta do that over again. Yeah, blah blah blah. Pictures, moon, blah, yeah, girl, blah 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 blah. God dang it! Frick. Alright, talk to her. As the girl was walking this way, I decided the best thing to do was to put my camera away and wait for her to come closer. I didn't want to scare her by running towards her or have to shout out over the ocean waves. I did. This was the right choice. Okay. She looks pretty. After I had patiently waited for what had seemed like 20 minutes, she was finally close enough that I could talk to her in a reasonable voice. That crack I just had in my voice was not intentional. Hello. Maybe it was the most... sorry. Maybe it wasn't the most eloquent of lines. I said that in a girl's voice, but it was in his voice. But it was all I could think of at the time, and I got the job done. She stopped and looked at me as if I were waiting for me to say something else. It's a nice night, it's warm, but not really all that hot. She nodded at this, and didn't say anything. I finally decided to cut the chase and ask her the question on my mind. So what are you doing out here? Walking? Just walking in the middle of the night? Yes. Are you going anywhere in particular? I walk around the island, following the beaches. The island wasn't that big. I could go around in a few hours, maybe a little more if I stopped for a break. I'd had no problems keeping up with her. Mind if I walk with you? If that's what you want. I decided that I'd bring my camera with me, but I hid my tripod and bag in the dunes. It took only a few seconds, and we quickly started walking down the beach. We walked in silence for a while until we could no longer see where we started. I looked back anyway and saw only our footprints breaking up the sand of the beach. Walking was great, but I needed to try talking to this girl. I decided to see if I could find out why she was out that night. So, she stopped and looked at me. Is there a reason why we were walking down the beach that night? Frick, whatever. It's something to do. I see. Do you do this often? It seems like I do this every day. Do you always walk alone, or do other people come with you? Usually I'm walking by myself, but once in a while I meet someone else, and sometimes they decide to walk with me. It only happened a few times, though. I don't think that anyone has asked me many questions as you. I didn't know how to take this. We stood in silence for a second. That's funny. Finally, she let out a small laugh, smiled, and took the initiative. What are you doing out here? I didn't think she was interested in me, so it took me a second to respond to her question. Seeing my hesitation, she elaborated. I think we both agree that it's rare to meet someone else out on the beach at this time of night. So what were you doing out here? It took me another second to think back of what I was doing, but then I finally answered her. I'm into astronomy. Well, stargazing, really. I was out taking digital photos of the moon as it rose. She looked at me questioningly, as if I didn't know what I was talking about. I found it a little odd, and I thought everyone knew what a digital camera was. I decided to show her... God dang it, I didn't even... Frick. I'm into astronomy. Well, wait, it went backwards. That was weird. Okay. I decided to show her the moon. I decided to show her my camera. Moon camera, moon camera, moon camera. I hate decisions. Camera. I decided the easiest way to explain was to show her the case of the pictures I had taken, so I pulled my camera out in the case and turned it on. I switched to displaying the pictures and called up one of the last pictures I had taken, one which showed a full disk of the moon. I held the camera up to the girl to let her see the picture on the screen. She took a good look at it, turned to look at the moon in the sky, and then took another long look at the screen. The moon, it's so small. I didn't know exactly what she was trying to get at here. The pictures are small here, but they look much bigger on the computer screen. I tried explaining, but it just seemed to confuse her even more, so I decided to change the topic. Did you grow up around here? I did. When I was growing up here, there weren't all these houses and buildings on the island. The only things on this island were farms, and the farms were huge. Only 4 families lived here, and between us, we owned all the land on the island. My family was one of the 4. We owned the southern end of the island, where we first met. We hadn't cleared all of our land, but we had a large enough farm that we could grow the food we needed and sell some to the market. I didn't know the island's population was so small so recently. I knew that tourism could grow a population, but so quickly. Did you go to school on the mainland then? Once in a while, we took the ferry over to sell our produce. We would spend a few days in the school being tested, but most of the time, we were homeschooled. Mama would teach us reading and writing, and Papa would teach us math and things. At least before they died. Oh God, that's just horrible. When talking to someone and then they just they died, and you just feel With this, her smile went away. It was obvious that it was a hard subject for her to talk about. Oh, okay. Ask her about her parents or drop the subject. I don't know. Which one do you guys think? It looked like if I asked her to continue, she would break up into tears, so I decided to let it go. Instead, started walking down the beach again. I don't know how much time has passed until we've spoken again. Maybe it was an hour, maybe less, maybe longer. We slowly made our way around the island, with me walking a few feet behind her. If it had been someone else, I probably would have taken my leave and headed back for home. But there was something about this girl that made me want to stay with her. An aurora of some sort, of beauty, or tragedy, of loneliness, perhaps some combination of them all and more. And so we kept walking down the Moonlight Beach. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore, and I tried once again to strike up a conversation with her. You go, man. So, is there anything that you want to do with your life? Huh, that's a good question. For a few seconds, she said nothing, as if I had said something wrong. Yeah, you dumbass. But then she began to speak. Once I thought I knew. When I was younger, it was like my life was planned out for me already. I would follow in my mother's footsteps. I'd help out on the farm for a few years. Even when we were young, we had chores. But when we finished our schooling, we could help out even more. Eventually, I'd meet a nice boy. I didn't know who at the time. Thinking back, it probably would have been one of the Miller boys. They were around my age. We would get married and start a farm of our own. We'd raise a family together, a few girls. I always wanted a boy, because all I had were sisters. Now, however, her smile vanished, and she let the thought trail off. After a while, she changed the subject back to me. What about you? What do you plan to do in the future? Her question took me a little off guard, both because I wasn't expecting her as much. She smiled a little at my obvious confusion. Well, I'm spending the summer visiting with my family. When it's over, I'm going back off to school. Aren't you a little old to still be in school? Well, state school. I'm going to be attending a university in the fall. I don't know what I'll do after that. I don't even know what classes I'll be taking or exactly what my major will be. I figured that when I'm not in school, I'll be living with my parents for a while. Eventually, I'll get a job and move out. And the settling down and start a family, well, I have no idea about what that's going to happen. I haven't really thought about it yet. I don't think many people had their lives as well planned out as you. I think most people are just sort of winging it. And at this, she let out a quiet laugh. Yeah, it changed to a smile. Is there something wrong with that? No, nothing at all. In fact, I think I envy you. Why? Well, you can do whatever you want with your life. You can go anywhere you want. Some people would think that having too many choices is some sort of curse or burden. This game is full of nothing but choices. Ugh. It's a friggin' dating sim. It's got nothing but choices. It is a burden. But I think it's just freedom, and that's a good thing. No, it's not, because if I choose the wrong thing, I lose the game twice before I even do anything. I think it's nice to live a life where your future is open, where you can do anything you want. Once again, I didn't know what to say, and for a second, I thought we'd go back to walking in silence. But instead of letting the conversation falter, she kept it going. What do you do for fun? Lots of things. I like drawing, listening to music, watching cartoons, football, and TV. Football? She repeated the term slowly, as if she knew both words, but she had never heard of them together. Yeah, football, you know the sport. You've heard of it, right? She shook her head to indicate that she hasn't. How can I begin to describe it? There are two teams on the field at once. She's just going to explain this, because I'm just going to skip this. Okay, so we passed the night talking about things. Mostly I talked and she listened. Sometimes she would ask me questions, and I would answer them the best I could. Many times that would be good enough, and she would break out laughing as I fumbled through another explanation. We spent the rest of the night like this, talking and laughing as we made our way around the island. I don't even know her name, and by dawn we had made it. They spent all night just walking around an island. By dawn we had made it almost all the way around the island, to a cliff not far from where we had first met. The girl started to climb back down the beach below, but I stopped her. I thought we could stay here and watch the sun come up. To my surprise, her reaction to my explanation was one of shock. It's sunrise already? I have to be gone. How did you not realize it was sunrise? This came as a surprise to me. We had been getting along well, and now she was about to run off. I want to know her name. It's not you I like, it's just that I can't. I understand. Right there, gentlemen, I understand. The sentence that all women... I'm gonna get so much hate. Okay, she started walking away. I searched my mind to see if there was anything else I could say to keep her from saying just a little longer. Suddenly, I realized that there was something I'd forgotten to ask her. Her name! What's your name? It's Mary. Mary Harper. Mary. That's a good name. I think out of all the dating... Alright, we'll go for her. Ooh, nice flare. She was gone. I didn't know where she went. Mary Harper. Mary Harper. Now down to a local area. Okay, she said she was on the south side. According to the phone book, no one named Harper lived on the island. Oh, great. After getting some sleep, I went to the library. He just slept out. Okay. I wonder what his aunt and uncle are thinking. Where have you been out all night? They were wiped out of an epidemic. Oh, people were wiped out. Only a few boys escaped to tell the tale. They left the island empty, and it wasn't until after the Civil War that people settled there again. I looked... Oh, sorry, another hiccup. And through the records of people living on the island. Despite hours of searching, I couldn't find anyone named Harper. Then I went to the beach again to see if I could see her. And then I tried again the next night, and the night after that. And every night for 2 weeks. Dude, come on. But after the first night, I never saw her again. Oh no, Mary. Oh man. Ending number 2, history. What? God! Dang! Thanks for playing. I read this thing. There's supposed to be like the full game. There's like a ton of different endings. Alright, let's skip all through this. We left off. When can I see you? I really... She paused for a second, thinking, and then finally told me, you can meet me again the night of the next full moon. There you go, that makes sense. The next full moon, it's not for another month. We can't meet before then? I'm sorry, that's just the next time. I understand, I'll be there when we first met. That's how you do it. Okay, as we continue. The sun cleared the horizon. Its brilliance blinded me, and I reflected. Closed my eyes, and then he fell asleep again, and then he woke up and the girl was gone. That month, looked back to hardly remember them. Kicking myself for forgetting to ask her name. Well, dumb, it's Mary, God, I've clicked it the last time. And finally, it was that night. I found myself once again standing out on the beach looking up at the moon. Girl, were you waiting long? I turned around and found her standing next to me. I wasn't really expecting you to be here. It's rare that I get to see someone a second time. Hey, I said I was going to be here, didn't I? You did. I'm the type of guy who keeps his word. When I'm saying I'm going somewhere, I will be there. Besides, a guy would have to be crazy not to come back to see you again. Or did you not hear what I said? You left in an awful hurry last time. I didn't even get a chance to ask your name. Now I get to ask your name. Mary. It's Mary Harper. Well, Mary Harper, it's good to see you again. After almost an entire month. It's good to see you too, but for me it feels like we were together only yesterday. I didn't exactly pick up on what she was saying here. Dude, open your eyes. I didn't think it was the same for me. I spent the entire month thinking about you. I'm not sure if it's exactly the same, but that's sweet. I didn't know what to say after that, so I didn't say anything. Instead, I simply motioned down the beach and we started walking together down the shore. It wasn't long before Mary broke the silence by asking me a question. What's with all these questions? I told you about my family, but I hadn't asked you about yours yet. What's your family like? Well, I'm on the island here. I live with my aunt and uncle back home. I live with my mom, father, and sister. A sister? Is she older or younger? She's 2 years younger, because all of this is relevant. Do you get along with her well? I thought about how to answer this for a second, decided honesty was the best policy. Not really, we fight like cats and dogs. And she gave a little gentle laugh. What do you fight about? Oh, it's never about the same two things. Put the two of us in a room together for a few hours and all of a sudden there's something and we're at it again. I was pretty sure I didn't want to keep going about how my sister and I fought all the time, so I needed to find a way to get out talking about it. How do you get along with your sisters? For a second I regretted asking that question. By the time it seemed happy to talk about it. My sister and I were the best of friends. We almost had to be, since our house was so small. Until I was 7, we even slept in the same bed. But we did everything together. Chores, blah blah blah, something half the time. Did you play together often? We did. Papa built us a dollhouse and Mama made us all dolls. And we could play with them together. We would play house. Karen would be the father, I would be the mother, and Alice would be our daughter. We would sing and make each other laugh. I haven't laughed like that since we met last month. Ooh, la la. I heard a wistful tone in her voice and decided to drop the subject. We started off again, walking down the beach. That night, as the night went by, we talked about many things. To be honest, I didn't really remember exactly what we said. What stayed with me are the sensations, the smell of the salt, the sea air, the waves hitting the shore, the moonlight that made her skin glow, the feel of the sand as I tripped on a rock and fell, the warmth of Mary's head as she reached out, what the frick? The warmth of Mary's hand as she reached out and helped me back up. Are you alright? I think so, the sand was soft. I'm glad. What did you trip on? I think it was a rock or something. I turned to look where I fell. There were rocks there, enough that it would have been hard to assign any one sole blame. Be careful, they wouldn't want you to be hurt. I nodded, gave the rocks one last look, and turned to start walking again. But then, a golden glint hit my eye. I went over to where I saw the glint and started digging. After a few seconds, Mary came over to where I was. Did you find something? I was going to say I didn't know, but I stopped myself, for I had found what I was looking for. In my hands was a gold ring. I held it up to Mary to take a look. It's a ring. I examined it a little more closely, and it was far too light to be made of real gold, and there were scratches where the gold plating was worn off. I held it so Mary could have a better look at it. It's beautiful. It's not real. Someone used a metal ring and plated gold onto it to make it look nicer. But it's so pretty. Would you like it? You can have it. Can I? Sure. Can you put it on for me? Oh yeah, playa. I didn't need to answer this as she held out her hand. I took it and slid the ring onto the finger. It was a perfect fit. Thank you. With that, she grabbed onto my arm and together we started walking down the beach. Booyah! Before we knew it, it was dawn and we found ourselves in the same place where we had parted a month ago. Can you stay to watch the sunrise this time? I'm sorry, I can't. Well, when can I see you again? I can only see you on the night of the full moon. Even though I thought she might say this, it still hurt a little to hear it. I didn't know how I could go a month without seeing her. How come? Why can't I see you before then? Because I'm a ghost. Oh, snap. She said it as if it was the most obvious thing in the world, as if someone telling you that she's a ghost is something that happens every day. Not knowing exactly what to say, I stood there in silence. Eventually, Mary decided to elaborate on this to tell me her story. I became a ghost after I died. I died along with my family in the epidemic that hit the island when I was 10. For some reason, I came back on the night of the full moon. I just found myself here on the island. I came back on the night of the next full moon, and the next, and as far as I know, everyone after that. I always come back on the night of the full moon. I can do whatever I want for that night, but when the sun rises, everything goes dark, and suddenly it's the next month. It's been that way for hundreds of years. Hundreds of years. Oh God, she's an old lady. I don't know, she still looks pretty hot. It was boring for a while, but eventually people came back to the island. Once in a while, someone would meet me, like you did. We would talk for a while, but most of them were only interested in talking to me because I was a ghost. They always went away after a while. I guess that's only so much I can say about it. Come to think of it, you never asked me about it. Did you figure it out? Of course I knew, or I had no idea. I had no idea. You didn't usually people figure it out on the first night. That's the only reason people ever came back. They would come and talk to the ghost until they lost interest. She let out a small laugh and then seemed to realize something. That means you aren't here because I'm a ghost? You came back because you chose to be with me? Once again I was speechless as she stood there for a little while. Finally she broke the silence. The sun's almost up and I need to be going. Don't go. But I grabbed her hand and pulled her close to me. Stay with me and watch the sunrise. We didn't say anything after that. We just stood there, hand in hand, watching the sky slowly brighten. I could feel her left hand in my right as we stood there looking out over the ocean. And the sun rose, and suddenly my right hand was empty. I turned to look, but the girl who was standing there was gone. I guess she really is a ghost. I said to no one in particular she had told me, and I believed her. But until she disappeared, there was still a little bit of doubt. I spent the morning standing in that cliff thinking about it, and finally I realized I had to set her free. It doesn't really matter. Of course you have to set her free. We gotta get Mary back. I realized that it wasn't natural for someone like Mary to be trapped for hundreds of years as a ghost condemned to show only up on the night of a full moon. And despite my feelings for her, I came to the conclusion that the best thing would be to do was to help her find peace. Next month, I spent the next month doing research in the island's small library. I pored over every book they had on the occult, ghosts, magic, witchcraft, things like that. Wait a minute, sorry, another hiccup, Jesus. What about a blue moon? A blue moon happens every, a few months. She would come back on a blue moon? I read 2 or 3 books a day. When I finished a few books the island's library I had them order more from the mainland. It got to the point where most of the librarians knew me by name, and the rest of me knew but my reputation as a college guy obsessed with the occult. The thing with the books was that while most of their content was made up, deep under the surface, some contained a small grain of truth. The only way I could figure out was to read everything I could on the subject and figure out what it all had in common. One night on the next moon, I was ready to put what I had to learn into practice. I returned to the spot where we met the first 2 nights and watched the ocean waves slowly rolling in. Mary was there waiting for me. You came back. I wasn't going to leave you alone after all that. She didn't say anything to this. So, what are we going to do tonight? Usually I spend the night walking around the island like we did the other nights. I see. So may I escort you? Of course. She grabbed my arm and we started off to our customary journey around the island. We didn't talk as much this time. We didn't need to. Just being in each other's presence was enough. The chill of the air contrasted with the warmth of her skin. Who would have thought that a ghost would be warm? We had a few short conversations to pass the time, but mostly we walked in silence. The events of the last time weighed heavy on us, as if we were both waiting for the other's shoe to drop. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore and came right with it and asked her the question I had to. Mary, is there something you regret never being able to do? The key insight, the kernel of truth that I discovered in all the books was that the thing that made a ghost is regret. What do you mean? I don't know. Is there something you wanted to do but never was able to? She thought about this for a while. Finally responded with a barely audible whisper. I want to be a bride. I knew it! I had come up with a list of things Mary could possibly regret, and this was on the top of the list. She had said her dream was to get married. Heck, her dress even looked like a wedding dress. I knew if I loved her, there was only one thing I could do. So I got down on one knee and said, Mary Harper, will you marry me? She was stunned by this and stood there for a few seconds, saying nothing. Finally, she spoke. Are you sure? Are you sure you want to marry me? The most sure that I've ever been. Then yes. I got up and we embraced, but she was still a little confused. But how can we do it? I can only go out at night. And I don't think that there are any ministers who will marry off a ghost. Don't worry, we can have a common law marriage. Common law. As long as we say we're married and make vows to each other, it counts. Really? So when can we get married? If you're ready, we can do it right now. I am. Then let's do this. I pulled out my back pocket a sheet containing wedding vows that I had prepared. Oh, this guy's all ready. I changed my voice to sound as if I was some sort of minister and began reading. Me speaking as a minister. Do you take this woman to be your wedded wife, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better, for worse, for rich or for poor, in sickness and in health, as long as you both exist? She doesn't exist because she's a ghost. In my normal voice, I responded, I do. I turned to Mary and repeat the vow for her. Oh my god. Do you take this man to be your wedded husband, to have and to hold? Okay, frick this. I do. True. That was a Robin Hood movie, if you guys ever saw it. It was funny as crap. We stood there for a second before I finally continued. Well, that's it. We're married. All that's left is the kiss. She came close to me, and we embraced. I closed my eyes, waiting for her lips. Thank you. I heard her whisper, and I felt the warmth of her lips as they touched mine. Then I felt nothing but the cold night air. When I opened my eyes, I was alone. Granddaughter, ew! My granddaughter's interpretation stopped me telling this story. Oh, this is a cop-out! Bull crap! Princess Bride, frick that, whatever. Granddaughter, you kissed someone who wasn't grandma? You married someone who wasn't grandma? Well, that was before I met your grandmother. In fact, that's how I first met your grandmother. She was working as an intern at the library. And after that, I never saw Mary again. She seems unconvinced. Was that really a true story? You have my word. She thinks about it for a few seconds before replying. I don't believe you. Tell me another story. Not tonight. It's after your bedtime. But... no buts. Now it's time for you to get some sleep. I turned off the lights so that she could finally go to bed. If I didn't, then my granddaughter wouldn't stay up all night and never go to sleep. My granddaughter, Mary, whose name I suggested to my son-in-law while we were waiting in the hospital. My granddaughter, named for the girl who I married for only a few moments on a moonlit beach long ago. Ending 3, married for moments. Yay, I got the good ending. I think. That was a good one. That was a nice start game. Alright, let's see if there's any other way. That was a good ending. I liked that. Okay, I had to set her free. It didn't really matter. A month later, I returned to the beach. This time, Mary was waiting for me. Hey, welcome back. I suppose you had a few questions to ask me. Everyone always does. Not me. This stopped her in her tracks. You don't have any questions? It doesn't matter to you what I am? What are you? What do you mean? You know, a ghost? That's not what you are to me. To me, you're the girl I want to be with, the girl that I love. Beyond that, it doesn't matter if you're a ghost or if I'm a leprechaun. All of this is unimportant. What matters is that you are you, and I'm me, and that we're together. With this, I started walking along the beach. She must have been too stunned to move, as she stood in one place for a while. Finally, I turned to ask, and I asked, "Are you coming?" "Yes." She cried out her response and started running after me. Together, we set off for another moonlight's walk down the beach. For that night on, we spent every full moon together. I went away to college, but I would always find time to drive down to the island to spend our night together. My first job was on the mainland, right across from the island. I would schedule my days to ensure that I had enough time to get to the beach before Mary appeared. Eventually, I saved up enough money to buy a house on the beach near where we first met. I started a software consulting business. What? Out of complete nowhere. It paid for the bills and then some, but an important part was I could always take time off around the full moon. I never missed a night. I would be there in clear weather and in rain. Once it even snowed, and once I had to make my way through a hurricane. Mary once said that it was nice to live a life where you could do what you want. Well, I knew what I wanted, and that I was to spend my life with her. Together, we celebrated my birthday 7 times and hers twice. We never missed a night together. Never. That is, until tonight. I'm dying. It was, oh god. I get the happy ending and now I'm getting the horrible ending. Oh, that just sucks. It's not as bad as it sounds. I'm 88 and I guess it's just my time. My heart is giving out and I've told the doctors not to do anything when it does. Do I have any regrets? Not really. Some people might think I would regret not having gotten married and having children, but for me, Mary was enough, even if we were never actually got married. Besides, I used the money I made from my business to put my sister's children and grandchildren through school, and there's enough left that they'll all have a nice inheritance. I'll leave the rest to charity. I think that taking care of my family and the world is as good a contribution to posterity as any. There is one thing I do regret, and that's I can't see Mary for one last time tonight. It's the night of the full moon, but I'm stuck in the hospital bed, too weak to move on my own. The end is near. My sense of the world outside myself grows dim, and I focus more and more on my body as it starts to give out. I feel my heartbeat growing fainter and fainter. Beat, beat. Finally, it stops entirely, and I realize that the end is upon me. I was ready to face it alone, but now I realize I didn't have to. Mary is standing there with me. I don't know why or how, but I do know that she's here. What matters is that we're together. The world becomes white, and I feel the years leaving me. Now all I can see is Mary. For some reason, she begins walking away from me. After a few seconds, she turns back to me and asks, "Are you coming?" I run to her and somehow grab her hands. Together, we step into the light. Together. That was a good ending. I like that ending. I like both the good endings. I think it's all the endings. Is that all the endings? Yeah, it's all the endings. Alright, well, thanks guys. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to us. You can circle us on Google+, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and if you want to download this game for yourself, Mary for yourself, and experience it for yourself, the download link will be in the description. It's free, and we will see you guys later. If you got any comments or questions to us, please don't be afraid to leave it in the comment section. Send us an inbox message. If you got any game you want us to do or review, even if you made it your own, we will totally gladly review it and do a video or whatever on it. So just tell us about it. We'll be happy to do it. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.